You wake up every morning with two choices. You can direct your focus outward, toward chaos, toward uncertainty, toward the opinions of others, or you can choose to anchor it inward, where real influence lies. Your physiology, your behavior, your breath, your actions, these are under your control. And when you begin to work from that place, everything begins to change. The science is clear. The human nervous system thrives when it perceives agency. When we believe we have control, real or perceived, our stress hormones drop, our cognition improves, and our prefrontal cortex, the center of executive function, lights up. Control isn't just a luxury, it's biological fuel. But here's the problem. Most people spend their energy trying to influence things that are untouchable. The past, other people's choices, the headlines, the markets, the algorithm. And every moment we waste trying to manipulate the uncontrollable, we're stealing energy from the one system that can actually move us forward, our own. Let's get specific. You can't control the thoughts that initially arise, but you can control how you respond to them. With practice, you can train your mind to observe rather than obey. That's neuroplasticity in action. The capacity of your brain to rewire itself based on your focus and behavior. You can't control the stress that shows up in your life, but you can control your state. You can slow your breathing. Just 2 to 3 minutes of deliberate physiological sighs, double inhale, long exhale, can shift your autonomic nervous system out of fight or flight and into calm alertness. That's not theory, that's physiology. Use it. You can't control how others see you, but you can control your own effort and preparation. Dopamine, the molecule of motivation, doesn't just spike when we achieve goals, it spikes when we make progress. That means the reward is in the work. Not the applause, not the likes, the work. This is where everything converges. Focus is a skill. It's trained through repetition and it responds to deliberate structure. When you deliberately focus your attention on what you can do, one task, one protocol, one breath, you create a neural circuit of empowerment. That circuitry strengthens, your sense of control strengthens, and your ability to push through challenge increases. People think motivation comes first. It doesn't. Action comes first. Motivation is the neurochemical echo of action taken under tension. So when you feel uncertain, stuck, overwhelmed, don't think your way out. Move. Take one controllable action. Your biology will follow. And if you need structure, here it is. Wake up and expose your eyes to sunlight within 30 minutes. Why? Because light hits the retina and signals to your brain that it's time to be alert. That simple act anchors your circadian rhythm and sets the tone for mental clarity. Avoid digital inputs for the first hour. Reclaim your focus before the world tries to hijack it. Hydrate. Move your body for 10-20 minutes. Get your internal systems online before giving your energy to anything external. These aren't just habits, they're mechanisms to reclaim control. When you encounter adversity, remember, the external storm is real, but the internal response is trainable. You can wire your brain for resilience by choosing how to breathe, how to speak to yourself, how to act. Repetition rewires identity. Every deliberate choice becomes a vote for the person you're becoming. Because in moments of stress, our brains are constantly scanning the environment for cues, looking for patterns, signals, and most importantly, control. This isn't merely psychological, it's biological. The human nervous system is hardwired to assess risk and reward, and one of the most powerful modulators of that system is perceived control. When you feel in control, the stress response in your body diminishes. When you don't, stress escalates and performance declines. The brain's response to control is so deeply ingrained that even the belief of having influence over a situation can dramatically alter both physiological and cognitive function. From a neurobiological standpoint, perceived control activates the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain responsible for decision-making, planning, and rational thought. This activation helps you override the amygdala, which is the seat of fear, anxiety, and emotional reactivity. The more the prefrontal cortex is engaged, the more balanced and adaptive your responses become. What's fascinating is that the perception of control, not necessarily full control itself, is often enough to produce this neural shift. It means you don't need to dominate every aspect of your environment, you simply need to feel that your actions matter and that your behavior can shape outcomes in some way. On the other hand, the absence of perceived control activates stress circuitry in the hypothalamus and brainstem, initiating a cascade of physiological responses: elevated cortisol, increased heart rate, and changes in immune function. This reaction, if chronic, wears down the body, impairs sleep, disrupts cognition, and even weakens memory formation. You may notice it as decision fatigue, emotional volatility, or a general sense of overwhelm. But these symptoms are not permanent states. They are signals, and those signals can be redirected through the restoration of agency. Perceived control is also closely tied to the neurotransmitter dopamine. When you believe your actions can yield a meaningful result, dopamine release increases. This neurochemical doesn't just regulate pleasure, it regulates motivation, learning, and movement. It helps you get up and try again. It helps you stay focused, and it helps you endure discomfort in pursuit of a reward. That's why controllable tasks, even small ones like cleaning your environment or organizing your schedule, can yield massive psychological benefits. They reinforce the sense that your behavior influences your world. This concept has been backed by decades of research. In classic psychological experiments, individuals exposed to uncontrollable stressors, like inescapable noise or pain, exhibited learned helplessness, a state where they stopped trying to improve their situation even when a way out was later introduced. But when subjects had any sense of control, even symbolic or minimal, they persisted, adapted, and performed better under pressure. This principle extends to physical health as well. Studies show that patients who perceive control over their recovery process, from choosing their rehabilitation exercises to managing their medication schedule, heal faster and experience fewer complications. In high-performance environments, perceived control separates those who thrive from those who burn out. Elite athletes, military personnel, and top performers in demanding fields often train under the principle that while they can't control external conditions, weather, opponents, or outcomes, they can control their preparation, their breath, their focus, and their mindset. That's not semantics. That's structure, and structure under stress is what allows the brain to shift from survival mode to performance mode. Practically, this means designing routines and behaviors that provide reliable signals of control to your nervous system. Wake up and expose your eyes to sunlight. This anchors your circadian rhythm. Hydrate early and move your body. This signals your system that you're ready for action. Organize your workspace and clarify your goals. This reduces cognitive clutter and helps direct attention. These are not simply wellness habits, they are deliberate inputs to modulate your internal state. The more you practice engaging with what you can control, the more you expand your capacity to remain calm and effective under pressure. This doesn't mean ignoring what's out of your hands. It means refusing to be defined by it. Your biology was built for adaptation. Your brain rewires based on focus, and your nervous system stabilizes when you give it certainty through intentional action. The perception of control isn't a fantasy, it's a skill, and it's one that can be trained, repeated, and scaled into every corner of your life. Your body is not just a vehicle for your mind, it is a feedback loop of immense power. When you shift your physiology, you change your mental state. That's not philosophy, it's biology. The nervous system doesn't distinguish between psychological and physical inputs in the way we might assume. It responds to signals. And among the most powerful tools you have to shift your mental state are the ones wired directly into your physiology. Your breath, your posture, your eyes, your heart rate. When used deliberately, these tools act as anchors. They stabilize your thoughts, regulate your emotions, and return you to a grounded, functional state, even in the midst of chaos. Let's begin with the breath. Breathing is unique in that it's both autonomic and under voluntary control. This gives you a doorway into the nervous system, a mechanism to shift your internal state without needing to think your way out of stress. One of the most powerful techniques is the physiological sigh, 2 quick inhales through the nose, followed by a long exhale through the mouth. This pattern resets the levels of carbon dioxide and oxygen in the bloodstream, quiets the activity of the amygdala, and activates the parasympathetic nervous system. In practical terms, it helps calm you down fast. Just 2 or 3 of these sighs can reduce physical symptoms of anxiety and sharpen mental clarity. Another tool lies in your visual system. Where you place your gaze influences your state of arousal. When you focus your eyes narrowly on a single object, what's called focal vision, you increase alertness and stress readiness. But when you soften your gaze and expand your field of vision, what's known as panoramic vision, you signal to your brain that you are safe. This shifts your body from fight or flight to rest and digest. When overwhelmed, simply widening your gaze can serve as a neurological circuit breaker, calming the system and allowing for more thoughtful decision-making. Movement also plays a crucial role. Physical activity, even at low intensity, activates the body's reward systems. This is not just about fitness, it's about mood regulation, cognitive clarity, and stress reduction. Rhythmic movement, like walking or cycling, has been shown to increase serotonin and endorphin levels, chemicals that stabilize mood and enhance feelings of well-being. But even more importantly, movement sends a signal to the brain that you're taking action, which is one of the most effective ways to combat feelings of helplessness or stagnation. When your mind is spinning, your thoughts racing, your outlook negative, move your body. Let your physiology lead your psychology. Heart rate variability, or HRV, is another key indicator of physiological balance. A higher HRV reflects greater flexibility in the nervous system, the ability to adapt quickly between stress and recovery states. Practices that improve HRV include deep, slow breathing, regular aerobic exercise, quality sleep, and exposure to natural light early in the day. All of these reinforce the body's natural rhythms, creating a foundation for cognitive performance and emotional regulation. The more consistent these habits become, the more resilient your mind becomes in the face of stress. Posture is often overlooked, but it has significant effects on mental state. When you sit or stand tall, with shoulders back and chest open, you create mechanical input to the spine and brainstem that correlates with confidence and alertness. This is not just psychological, it's neuromechanical. The way you hold your body shapes the way your nervous system interprets the world. Slouching, shallow breathing, and a closed-off posture feed into the perception of stress and danger. In contrast, an upright posture with intentional breath reinforces a sense of readiness and calm. What makes physiological tools so valuable is their immediacy. They bypass the slower, more abstract processes of cognition. You don't need to debate with your thoughts or convince yourself to feel differently. You can act, breathe, move, shift your gaze, stand tall, and your body will respond. Your brain will notice the signal, and it will begin to adapt. This gives you power in situations where your mind feels scattered or overwhelmed. It gives you structure when the external world offers none, and it trains the nervous system to associate control not with external circumstances, but with internal practices. Consistency matters. These tools are not one-time fixes, they are ongoing inputs. Just as you eat regularly to fuel your body, you must practice these techniques to fuel your mind. Over time, they build a scaffold of self-regulation that you can rely on, not just in moments of crisis, but as a daily baseline of clarity and control. You become someone who does not wait for calm to arrive, but creates it. Someone who does not need to feel strong to act strong, because the act itself makes you strong. This is the power of anchoring the mind through the body. It is a return to simplicity, to the primal mechanisms built into you for survival, for balance, and for thriving. And when you return to these anchors, your mind will follow, every single time. Dopamine is often misunderstood. It's commonly labeled as the pleasure chemical, but that's only a fragment of its function. In reality, dopamine is much more than a fleeting reward signal. It's the driver of effort, the engine of motivation, and the brain's way of signaling pursuit. More importantly, dopamine is not primarily released when you achieve a goal. It is released as you move toward that goal. The anticipation, the forward movement, the sense that you're making progress, even in small steps, that's what stimulates dopamine. This single insight reframes the way you should approach everything, from personal goals to daily habits. When you link dopamine only to outcomes, winning the competition, reaching the milestone, you set yourself up for an emotional roller coaster. The moment the goal is reached, dopamine levels drop. That's why so many people feel empty after hitting a big target. They mistakenly believe that the peak experience will sustain them. But dopamine doesn't work that way. It's not about the finish line. It's about the steps taken to get there. It's about the process. This understanding is rooted in neuroscience. Dopamine is produced in areas of the brain like the ventral tegmental area, VTA, and projected to key regions such as the nucleus accumbens and the prefrontal cortex. These circuits track effort and proximity to reward, not just the reward itself. That's why when you set a goal and begin making measurable progress toward it, your brain reinforces that behavior. You feel good not just when you win, but when you move. And the more frequently you reinforce that loop, action followed by a small win followed by dopamine, the more motivated and resilient you become. This has enormous implications for how you structure your daily life. If you rely solely on distant, high-stakes goals to generate motivation, you're setting yourself up for long periods of stagnation and frustration. The solution is to break large ambitions into smaller, actionable targets. Each time you check one off, your brain registers success. It releases dopamine. You feel momentum. This isn't just a productivity hack. It's a physiological principle. The brain rewards pursuit. Moreover, dopamine is sensitive to how you frame your experience. If you view a challenge as an opportunity to grow, to learn, or to test your capacity, you enhance dopamine release during the task itself. If, on the other hand, you approach a task as a burden or something you're forced to do, dopamine release drops. The task feels heavier, harder, and more exhausting, not because it is objectively more difficult, but because your brain chemistry is no longer supporting your effort. Meaning matters. Perspective shapes chemistry. What's even more fascinating is that dopamine levels are relative. They respond to contrast. If you achieve something easily, the dopamine spike is mild, but if you struggle, push, and overcome, the release is greater. This is why voluntarily enduring difficulty, what some call deliberate discomfort, builds motivation. It trains your brain to associate effort with reward. When you push through resistance and make progress, even slow progress, you wire your brain for resilience. That's the difference between people who sustain high performance and those who burn out. One group is addicted to outcomes. The other is fueled by process. There's also a risk here. When dopamine is constantly chased through artificial means, social media, sugar, stimulants, it disrupts the natural cycle. The brain becomes desensitized, baseline dopamine drops, motivation declines, tasks that once felt meaningful now feel dull. That's why recovery is essential. Sleep, rest, and breaks allow dopamine levels to reset. When you protect your baseline, you protect your capacity to stay driven. You protect your ability to keep showing up. So if you want to build lasting motivation, focus on effort. Set targets that are within reach but still challenging. Celebrate progress, not perfection. Let the pursuit be the reward. When you do, you build a self-sustaining loop of action and reinforcement. You no longer have to wait for inspiration. You become the source of it. Your nervous system learns to crave the next step, not the distant prize. And that changes everything. This is the biology of forward momentum. It's not based on willpower alone. It's grounded in neurochemistry. And when you understand how to work with that chemistry, you gain a level of control that most people never access. You stop chasing highs and start generating purpose. One step at a time. One surge of dopamine at a time. Progress becomes your fuel. And that's how lasting motivation is built. Not by obsessing over outcomes, but by learning to fall in love with the climb. Focus is not something you're born with or without. It is not a fixed trait. It is a trainable skill, deeply intertwined with the brain's capacity to adapt and rewire itself. A process known as neuroplasticity. Your ability to concentrate, sustain attention, and ignore distractions is not just a matter of personality or talent. It is a function of how you've trained your nervous system, often without realizing it. In a world saturated with noise, screens, and constant demands for your attention, learning to focus is not just an advantage, it is a necessity. The brain is constantly responding to what you pay attention to. Neurons that fire together, wire together. Every time you allow yourself to be distracted by a notification, a message, a new tab, you're reinforcing the neural circuitry of distraction. Your brain becomes better at switching, worse at sustaining. Conversely, when you engage deeply with one task, resist the urge to multitask, and bring your attention back when it drifts, you're strengthening the circuitry of focus. Over time, those circuits become more dominant. The ability to concentrate becomes easier, more automatic. This is how skill acquisition works, through deliberate repetition. The prefrontal cortex plays a central role in focus. It governs executive functions like planning, decision-making, and self-regulation. But its activity is highly sensitive to your internal state. Sleep deprivation, chronic stress, and emotional overload all impair prefrontal function, making it harder to resist distractions or maintain attention. This is why training focus is not just about willpower, it's about managing the physiological conditions that support it. Sleep well, eat clean, hydrate, and move regularly. These are not optional self-care practices, they are performance fundamentals. When your body is in balance, your mind is better able to lock in. Attention operates like a spotlight. You choose what to shine it on, but you must also learn to keep it there. The first step is reducing passive input. If your day begins with scrolling, your brain is already in reactive mode. It's been primed to jump from idea to idea, headline to headline. Instead, begin with intention. Choose the one or two things that matter most, and block time to work on them without interruption. Even 60 to 90 minutes of deep work can rewire your neural circuits toward clarity and depth. The key is consistency. Focus strengthens through repetition, not random bursts of inspiration. Breath is another powerful lever. Controlled breathing, especially slow nasal inhales and extended exhales, helps modulate your state of arousal. This is crucial because focus requires a very specific state. Not too relaxed, not too agitated. There's a narrow band of autonomic arousal where mental clarity, attention, and cognitive performance peak. You can learn to steer yourself into that zone using simple breath protocols. This isn't abstract, it's measurable, reproducible, and reliable. You can train your nervous system to find the zone more quickly and stay there longer. Environment also matters. Your brain responds to cues. If you try to focus in a place filled with signals of entertainment or multitasking, your attention will fragment. Create a space that supports focus. Declutter. Silence your phone. Use noise-canceling headphones or ambient sound. These are not just productivity hacks, they are ways to signal to your brain that it's time to lock in. And the more often you pair that environment with deep work, the stronger the association becomes. Eventually, just entering that space will prime your brain for concentration. What's important to understand is that distraction is not a moral failure, it's a biological response. Your brain is wired to notice novelty, to scan for threats, to jump toward anything that might be important. Focus requires overriding that default circuitry, and that override gets stronger the more you practice. Each time you catch your mind wandering and gently bring it back to the task at hand, you're training the skill. That simple act, returning to focus, is the rep. Just like a muscle, your ability to concentrate grows with repetition. Technology has made distraction easier than ever, but it has also made training focus more accessible. Tools like time-blocking apps, noise filters, and guided breathing can support your efforts, but they are only aids. The work must come from deliberate intention. You must choose to protect your attention. You must decide that your time and energy are worth more than endless scrolling and digital noise. That decision, when repeated often enough, reshapes your brain. It builds the capacity for deep thinking, strategic planning, and creative insight. Focus is not something you have or don't have. It is something you build, moment by moment, choice by choice. And once trained, it becomes a superpower in a distracted world. It becomes the foundation of every meaningful pursuit. Whether you're trying to write, lead, create, or grow, your ability to focus will determine your trajectory. Not talent, not luck, not even intelligence. Attention is the currency of growth, and the more intentionally you invest it, the greater your return. Predictability is a signal of safety to the brain. When your internal systems receive consistent inputs at consistent times, they begin to regulate themselves more efficiently. This is the foundation of internal control. It's not about micromanaging every moment of your life. It's about setting up reliable signals that tell your nervous system when to be alert, when to recover, when to focus, and when to rest. Daily protocols are not restrictions, they're stabilizers. They remove ambiguity, reduce cognitive fatigue, and build a rhythm that allows the brain and body to operate at their best. Control starts internally, and daily habits are the entry point. Your brain craves pattern recognition. It is constantly scanning for what happens when and why. When you wake up at the same time each day, expose your eyes to light early, move your body, and follow a structured sequence of actions, your brain receives those signals as certainty. And in biology, certainty equals control. A stable routine calibrates your circadian rhythm, optimizes hormone release, and creates mental clarity. Morning sunlight exposure within 30 to 60 minutes of waking, for example, triggers a spike in cortisol and suppresses melatonin, giving your brain the alertness it needs to function. This one act signals the beginning of a productive state, aligning your internal clock with the natural world. Nutrition works the same way. Eating at consistent times allows your body to anticipate energy needs, regulate blood sugar more effectively, and reduce inflammation. When meals are random or reactive, the body enters a state of unpredictability, spiking and crashing through energy highs and lows. But when intake is predictable and nutrient-dense, it reinforces balance. Hydration protocols, such as drinking a full glass of water shortly after waking and maintaining steady intake through the day, provide the body with another reliable signal that it's safe and supported. Again, the theme is consistency over complexity. The body responds more to repetition than to optimization. Movement is another cornerstone. You don't need a perfect workout plan to benefit. Even short bursts of exercise, 10 to 20 minutes of walking, stretching, or resistance work, anchor the mind. Physical movement increases blood flow, boosts dopamine, and enhances focus. When done at the same time each day, it becomes a reset button for both mental and physical performance. It builds a subconscious link between motion and control, reminding the brain that it is capable of self-regulation through action. Movement also helps transition between states, waking up, refocusing after work, or winding down before sleep. Digital inputs, particularly in the first and last hours of the day, shape how the brain perceives the world. If the first thing you engage with is a barrage of emails or notifications, your system starts in a reactive state. This sets off a cascade of stress hormones and distractibility. On the other hand, if your protocol includes 10 to 15 minutes of silence, reading, writing, or intentional breath work, you create a buffer that protects your attention and stabilizes your mood. The same principle applies at night. Avoiding screens at least 60 minutes before sleep allows melatonin production to ramp up naturally, improving sleep quality, which in turn stabilizes your mood, focus, and motivation the next day. Even simple protocols like journaling, planning your day the night before, or setting a single key intention can profoundly affect your sense of internal order. These micro-routines act as anchors, predictable moments where the mind knows what to expect and how to respond. Privation. They also offload the need to constantly decide what to do next, reducing decision fatigue and preserving willpower for more important tasks. Over time, the brain comes to associate these patterns with security and competence. What's powerful about daily protocols is that they create a structure you can rely on regardless of what's happening outside of you. The world may be uncertain, stressors may appear without warning, but your internal system has a rhythm it can trust. That rhythm, built through daily choices, becomes your control center. You don't need perfect conditions to be productive or calm, you just need consistent signals. These protocols communicate to the brain that you are in command, that the environment is manageable, and that you are safe to perform, think, and recover. This sense of predictability over time builds a stronger sense of self. It reinforces identity through behavior. You begin to think of yourself as someone who follows through, someone who is disciplined, someone who can navigate pressure without falling apart. These are not abstract affirmations. They are the result of daily input shaping biological and psychological patterns. And that's what internal control really is. The outcome of repeated actions that bring your body and brain into alignment day after day.